Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. A lot of national media hype kind of building around this Auburn program over the last couple of weeks, heading into 2024 now for the Auburn fans who've been rocking with the fellas the last couple months, the last 12 months. You guys kind of know we were buying the hype all the way in spring practice. And now we're getting 2 weeks before we kick off the 2024 season. You look up at this Auburn schedule and say, there's a real opportunity that Auburn goes undefeated in the month of September, starts this season 5-0. Want to take an early look at these first 5 games for this Auburn program. And the reason I think that this is such an important conversation to have, many of you guys know I'm a Michigan fan. This kind of reminds me of Michigan coming out of that COVID season heading into 2021, where, we knew this Michigan team had the talent to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten, but the confidence within the Michigan program in terms of winning football games, it just wasn't there. And then they had a gettable early part of the 2021 schedule. They started the season undefeated, and you started seeing that talent within the Michigan program kind of believe that this was a winning football program. And I think that conversation kind of can apply to this Auburn program as well, where you go back to 2023, let's be clear, the talent was nowhere near what it is going into 2024. But this Auburn program just did not strike me as a team that believed they could win football games kind of late in the fourth quarter. You think about that Georgia game. You think about that Alabama game where this Auburn program was competing with some of the best teams in the country. But within that Auburn locker room, you just never felt the vibes that this Auburn team believed that they could win football games. If they can start this season 5-0, kind of get that winning culture within this program, I think that's a massive storyline for this Auburn team the rest of the 2024 season. Now, am I getting up here and taking Auburn to go undefeated, win the college football playoffs? No, we're not there yet. That being said, I think I'm really excited for the proposition of what this Auburn team looks like if they can go 5-0 to start the 2024 season. Want to get into these early 5 games, talk about how Auburn stacks up, and then kind of look at this schedule and say, how dangerous can Auburn be towards the back half of this schedule? Really excited to get into it. Now, before we do, as always, to the Auburn fans, I can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the boys like y'all have throughout the last couple months. It has truly been a blast talking this program on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal. The amount of support y'all have shown means the world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear how you guys are feeling about this early September schedule for this Auburn program. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's take a look at Alabama A&M. I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say I don't have a ton of information on Alabama A&M. If Auburn's even close to what I think they're going to be in 2024, that's a win at night in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Now, I think that second game is a game that Auburn fans might have some nightmares about in terms of that road trip last year to Cal, where, let's just put it frankly, Auburn played about as bad of a football game as you would have seen them play. And they still were able to go on the road and get it done against Cal. I think the big storyline here is, one, I think this Auburn team early in the season last year, they just had no clue what they were. I mean, Peyton Thorne, Robbie Ashford were kind of split in time. I don't even think they knew who they wanted to rock with that quarterback. The positions around the quarterback were certainly not good enough. And that was kind of the story for Auburn throughout 2023, was I just don't think they had an identity. I don't think they had a clue of who their playmakers were going to be. You look at this Auburn team heading into 2024, specifically early in the season, and say, you can kind of point to the leaders within this program. You can kind of point to the difference makers within this Auburn team. And so it makes you have a lot more confidence that this game against Cal is going to look a lot different. I think the second storyline is Cal now has to go across the country and play in Jordan-Hare Stadium, where I know Auburn is not going to take the game for granted. I think in previous years, maybe this is a quote-unquote look-ahead game, maybe a sleepy game. Because of how that game went in Cal last year, I don't think Auburn's looking past this game against Cal. 3:30 kick in Jordan-Hare Stadium. I expect the environment to be electric. Now, you look at Cal and say, hey, Cal got better too. I mean, I've been very vocal that I think Auburn is one of the most improved football teams that we see in the country. I think Cal did some really nice things in the transfer portal as well. That being said, Cal kind of reminds me of the spot Auburn was in kind of last year, where they have a little bit of a quarterback controversy heading into 2024. I wouldn't be surprised if you see 2 quarterbacks within that football game. And Cal has a ton of new faces on this program. I think from a talent standpoint, they got better. But if you were to ask me when you wanted to play Cal, it probably would be early in the season when they're still trying to figure out what kind of team and who their playmakers are. And so the combination of Auburn getting better, Auburn certainly not looking past this game against Cal, and it being at home, Cal having to travel across the country, give me a win against Cal. New Mexico, again, one of those games that if Auburn's anywhere close to where we think they are, even if they play their C game, they're going to be winning that football game. You kick off SEC play with the team in Arkansas that's got a lot of question marks, right? I think Bobby Petrino coming in as the offensive coordinator is certainly exciting. Taylen Green is an exciting quarterback. Taylen Green is a exciting quarterback, but an inconsistent quarterback. I think, this game kind of depends on what version of Taylen Green you get, because you go back to the Boise State film. We've talked a lot about Taylen Green. You've seen some Taylen Green that's really exciting, but you've also seen some really bad Taylen Green, and you get that game at home. That'll be Taylen Green playing in no doubt the most rowdy environment he's ever played in. You don't get those kind of environments at Boise State. I guess the question would be, what version of Taylen Green do you get? And I think secondly, I think this Auburn defensive line is continuing to get better. What is the biggest question mark we have about Arkansas heading into 2024? It's, can they run the football? Can they pass protect? I think Auburn is favored in the trenches. I think you have some question marks about Taylen Green and what version you get. Auburn at home here is going to be a 7-point plus favorite in this football game. We're taking Auburn. And then I think that game that every college football fan, but especially Auburn fan, has circled is Oklahoma coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium Saturday, September 28th, afternoon kickoff game, 3:30, 4:30. Here's what I'm looking at for this Oklahoma game. One, is there a potential letdown game for Oklahoma where you look at Oklahoma's schedule the week before this, the week before they go on the road to Jordan-Hare Stadium, they are hosting their first ever SEC football game against Tennessee. I'm not a big believer in letdown games, although we've seen letdown games happen plenty in college football. If there was some sort of letdown game for Oklahoma, you're kind of sandwiched in between the Red River game and the first SEC opener. This is kind of a sneak game for Oklahoma, where I don't know if Oklahoma has this game circled. I think Auburn has this game circled as a game that if you can win this game 5-0, probably going to be a top 20 team heading on the road to Georgia. Auburn's going to be up for this game. Oklahoma, potential little kind of sleeper game in between two massive matchups for them on their schedule. And I think secondly, you look at this Oklahoma roster and say, there's a lot of new for Oklahoma. This will be Jackson Arnold's first road start of his career, but more importantly, first road start in the SEC. And Jordan-Hare Stadium, if this team is 4-0, is going to be absolutely rocking for a young quarterback that not only is a young, inexperienced quarterback, but has a new center, has a new offense play caller. His new wide receiver one is coming over from Purdue. There's a lot of new on this Oklahoma team as well. You look at how Oklahoma would want to match up against Auburn. I think it would start with this Oklahoma defensive line. That's kind of the strength of this Oklahoma team. I'm a believer in Auburn's offensive line. I mean, you bring in Percy Lewis, you kick Dylan Wade down the guard. I look at this Auburn offensive line and say there's a lot of continuity. A lot of these guys have played with each other outside of Percy Lewis last year. I think this Auburn team is going to be able to block up Oklahoma. And I'm not kind of getting up here and saying this is going to be a cakewalk game for Auburn in any sense. They might even be underdogs at home. That being said, I think there's a lot of people across the country that kind of pencil in Oklahoma winning this football game, where if you get an Auburn team that's 4-0 and you're hosting an Oklahoma team that's got a lot of new, specifically at the quarterback position, the offensive play caller position, and the center position, Jordan-Hare Stadium is rocking. I think Auburn's got a much better chance at winning this football game than a lot of national media analysts will kind of say. And I think what's so fascinating about it is then you look up and say Auburn's 5-0. It's going to be a top 15 team going on the road to Georgia. Now, again, am I picking Auburn to go on the road to Sanford Stadium and win that football game against Georgia? No, I'm probably not, but Georgia plays Alabama in a couple weeks prior, so that could be maybe a little bit of a letdown game for Georgia. All I'm kind of saying is I think Auburn has the chance to be 5-0 leaving the month of September. They get every single one of their games at home, winnable games at home here. What happens if Auburn, kind of gets some momentum? What happens if Auburn as a program believes that this is a winning football team? That's a really exciting proposition for this Auburn team that we think is a much better team from a talent standpoint than they were in 2023. If Auburn goes 5-0 this is going to be a team that's really fun to watch in the months of October and November. Fire me up for this Auburn team in 2024. You guys already knew I've been buying stock. You kind of look at this early schedule and say, all right, we're for real buying some stock within this Auburn program. We'll cut it there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all